Good evening, everyone. I'm Sierra with Generations Health. Thank you so much for joining us for our program, Sweet Dreams, Reimagining, Caring for Your Older Loved One So You Sleep Better at Night, presented by Jennifer Fitzpatrick. We are so grateful to have Oasis Senior Advisors sponsoring today's program. And in just a moment, I'm going to invite them to join us. But first, there are a few things I want to go over with you. Everyone is muted to eliminate any background noise. However, this is an interactive program, so please feel free to ask any questions, answer questions, or comment on the discussion that is taking place. To do this, you can utilize the chat feature. As a reminder, to find the chat, you can scroll over to the bottom of your screen, and there you will see a banner that pops up. On the banner, there is a bubble that says chat. When you click on that, the chat feature will launch and will most likely show up on the right-hand side of your screen. Jennifer is great about keeping an eye on the chat to answer your questions. Let me now introduce our sponsor, John Benbrook with Oasis Senior Advisors.
Thank you, Sierra. I'm going to pull up my slides, if that's okay. If you can let me do that, that'd be great. Hope everybody can see those. Let me just get it into, there we go. Whoops. All right. So thank you, guys. Welcome. We're really excited about sponsoring with Generations. We've done this for now many years. We just think it's a great program, the different topics, supporting seniors and their families. We have absolute pleasure in working very hard to support seniors and their families around the country. And I just want to share a few things about Oasis if you're not familiar. We're a nationwide system of certified senior living advisors. We provide a free service to families and the families and the seniors that they're caring for. It's not a free service. We're compensated by communities if and only if our family's journey leads them there. But we can provide a lot of other resources as well. It's personal, professional, and caring, meaning that we really get to know our family, to understand their dynamic. Each family is unique. Their care needs are unique. Their ability to afford different services are unique. The locations and where they're looking are unique. So we really need to take all of that into consideration. We do this, we partner with seniors and their families to help them understand their options. And to understand the need of the family, we're not going to recommend something that's just cookie cutter. It's got to be really specific to the need of the family. The right resources are only provided at the request of the family, meaning if you're looking at a senior living community and you work with us, we're not going to take your information and blast it to 10, 15 communities. We're going to narrow it down very specifically based on, again, your needs. You'll hear that common theme from Oasis if you work with one of our advisors around the country. The right fit, we have a proprietary software that allows us to do exactly what I just said. Once we understand the needs based on the things, that criteria that's important to the family, we can bring information to you very, very quickly. And in some cases, when a senior's in the hospital and we have to move through discharge, or they need that community very quickly, or as alternative living option, speed matters, and we can work incredibly quickly. This just represents the map. We're growing every month. In fact, these numbers are a little outdated. I didn't get a chance to update them. We have 130 territories in 34 states, and we're growing every month. So there's a really good chance, depending on where you're dialing in from around the country, there's a Oasis Senior Advisor that can help you. So at this stage, I want to stop, and that's the end of my commercial. Sierra, I want to turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, let's get started by giving you some information about your presenter today. Let me ask you some questions. Do you want to better reduce your stress caring for a loved one? If you answer yes to this question, you are in the right place. Our presenter today is the author of Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One, and a former gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University Certificate on Aging program. She has also been featured in national media, including the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the Chicago Tribune. When she's not speaking and writing about caregiving and healthcare, she can be found practicing her below average yoga skills. Please join me in welcoming all the way from Kent Island, Maryland, Jennifer Fitzpatrick, MSW
Hi.
CSP.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, John and Crystal from Oasis Senior Advisors. As John mentioned, this really is interactive. So this hour is all about you getting what you need to reduce your stress, sleep better at night, to take care of your loved one. So if at any point you've got a question or a comment, or if you just want to tell us where you're dialing in from, we would love to see what you have to say. So just go ahead and write in that chat section. A lot of times when somebody's going through a stressful experience, people will say to them, "How are you sleeping at night?" And caregiving and helping out with a loved one, especially an older loved one that's probably declining a bit or maybe declining a lot, is one of the most stressful experiences that a human being can have. And so the sleep is really sort of a euphemism. Asking how you're sleeping at night is a euphemism in some ways for, are you losing your mind completely? How many people can relate to that? Somebody asking you, how you doing? Instead of that, they might be saying, how are you sleeping at night? Are you getting any sleep? And a lot of times people will say, probably not. So what I'd like to invite you to do in the chat section is, if you feel inclined to share with us on a scale of 0 being horrible and 100 being great, where would you put your sleep right now? And hey, Josephine from Queens, thanks for joining us tonight. And if you want to, anybody else want to write in your number and share where you're coming in from, we'd love to say hi to you too. But I'm going to guess that most people, if you're joining us tonight on this program, 70%. Darren, we want to know your secret. Walter says 3. Anna from Connecticut says 7. Aislinn from Baltimore says 40. 20 from Clearwater. Elizabeth. Josephine says 7. So yeah, I welcome everybody. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of low numbers, but we want to, that gentleman that just said 70%, we would love to hear your secret. We'd love to hear your secret. How are you getting such good sleep? Because over 50, in my opinion, if you're helping out with an older loved one, is a pretty darn good number. But what we want is for everybody to be getting 80, 90, and 100 scores. And I'm guessing most of you, if you're not on, work all day, read before bed, Darren says 70 to 80%. That's great. Lisa, if you want to tell us your secret why you're sleeping so well, I'm wondering if you've already used Oasis Senior Advisors. That might be the reason. But in addition to sleep, I want you to consider for a moment your life as a family caregiver, somebody who is helping out with an older loved one. And some of you are writing in that your loved one lives far away from you, and some of you are writing in that your loved one is nearby. But I want you to think about your life as a pie: your work life, your physical health, your financial, your intimate relationships, psychology, social life. And I want you to be thinking, on a scale of 0 being awful and 100 being the best, where would you put? Are there pockets of your life that are below 50? And just to be thinking about that, if you want to share, you most certainly can. You're very welcome to share. But what I'm trying to get at here is, obviously sleep has to do with your physical health, but there's a lot of other things. For some of us, it's all about our sleep. We're kept up at night. We wake up in the middle of the night. For some people, the manifestation of caregiver stress comes from, we get headaches, we get upset stomach, we're in the bathroom a lot, or our work is suffering, that we're calling in. I remember when my grandmother was really sick, and when I've had issues over the years when my dad was sick, and I felt like my work would suffer. I'd be working lots of extra hours, working late at night to try to make up for the time that I was helping out with them. For a lot of us, we feel like our intimate relationship suffers. My dad died when I was 65. When he was 65. And he had a lot of mental health stuff going on over the course of his life. And one of the things that I had to be really, really mindful of, and my husband got along really well with my dad, but I had to be really careful that, because if I've spent too much time on my dad's issues, that my relationship is, which is super important to me, would have fallen. I don't want it to go from like a 90 down to a 20. So all of this, it takes a toll, and everybody, you probably can relate. So if you're in the camp of you feel like your physical health is taking the toll, like sleep or getting headaches or something like that, write in. But if there's another area of your life that's being impacted the most by helping out with your older loved one, please share that. Work, financial, social, psychological, intimate, and feel free to, again, write in where you're from if you feel comfortable, or where your loved one lives. Or your spiritual life. A lot of people talk about feeling angry with, if they believe in a higher power, they believe in God, they're angry with God, or maybe they're missing their faith community program that they want, or maybe they simply meditate. So is there an area that you feel has really been compromised since helping out? What area would that be for you? And so I also want to throw out the concept that it's not just about you and your life, because a lot of you might be thinking, well, I love my husband, I love my mom, I love my aunt who I'm taking care of. And maybe you're kind of putting your needs aside for right now, but how is their life going? How's their life? So I'm getting some answers in the chat. I just want to take a look. Um, uh, so St. Louis, most areas are compromised. Life, like a whack-a-mole. Thanks, Beth, for sharing that. Life is like a whack-a-mole right now. Most areas are tough. Yeah, I'm sorry. And that's very common for family caregivers. It's not just I can't sleep at night, but it's I'm stressed out with my social life. I feel like all my friends have stopped calling me because they know I'm going to always say that I can't go out. I can't meet for book club. I can't go out for a coffee or for a drink. But I want you to now be thinking about your loved one, whoever that person is, if it's your mother, if it's your grandmother, if it's your aunt, if it's your sister, whoever this person that you love that you're helping out with care might be. I want you to be thinking about what areas of their life are lacking right now. How's their sleep? How's their physical health? How's their psychological health? Now, for a lot of people that you're helping take care of, they probably maybe don't work anymore. Maybe they are retired. But if there's any kind of volunteer work that they do, or how's their social life? One of the top things that I see in my history as being a former psychotherapist, and by working with older adults for many, many decades, I have found that one thing that suffers that doesn't get a lot of attention is everybody thinks for sure right away about money. How's the money? Because care, if you're going to move to a senior living community, or if you're going to bring help into the home, it's going to cost money. A lot of people think about that. And everyone, of course, immediately goes to physical health. How is your physical health? Is this person falling? Is this person having issues with getting around the house? Is this person remembering to take medicine? Is this person sleeping at night? But a lot of times I think the parts that really get overlooked are the socialization and the psychological health. And so if maybe you've got a loved one who they're home and maybe they're doing okay at home and they have some physical issues, but they're not seeing anybody but you. And that can be a problem if you're the only source of socialization. They're not going out of their house much anymore. They're not really seeing others. They're not really picking up the phone or doing the FaceTime calls or the Zoom calls with the grandkids. That maybe their life has become smaller. And that is often a big sign that something needs to change, that something needs to be different. Hey, Victoria from Houston. Hello. Thanks for joining us. Kathleen says, mom's in a nursing home nearby. I don't like this arrangement. Want to bring her to my apartment. That would have challenges. Yeah. And you're in Texas too. Welcome, Kathleen. Yeah, listen, here's the thing. Anything that happens in family caregiving, never going to be perfect. In Cruising Through Caregiving, and you can download all the worksheets completely for free at cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. Sierra will put that in the chat if you'd like to do that. It's exercises on how to find out what your stress score is. It's exercises on how to figure out, is it time for another level of care? But Sierra put cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. It's never going to be perfect. There's never a perfect solution. Staying home for people who have a lot of need isn't always the perfect solution. Bringing home care in, moving to nursing home or assisted living, I don't know that everybody's always going to feel like this is perfect, this is the best solution possible. But what we want to help you do is to sleep better at night, you and your loved one. If you gave yourself a really low sleep score and then you said, hey, I'm suffering, like some people said, I'm suffering in all these areas, and or your loved one is suffering and struggling in many of these areas, it probably is time to talk to them and look at how can we have a conversation around what can we do a little bit differently, or maybe what can we do a lot differently, because sometimes a dramatic change is necessary. Hey, Lisa from San Diego. Hey, Angie from Perrysburg, Ohio. Josephine says, mom is presently in a rehab, need to make a tough emotional decision. Can you bring her home or do nursing home? That is a really hard decision. And that is definitely something that Oasis senior advisors could potentially help you out with, maybe to see what would be a good fit. Kristen in Northwest Ohio. We got another John in Texas. A lot of Texas people here this evening, or late afternoon for some of you. So let's look a little bit about when is it time to look at, when do you need to have a conversation with your loved one? Have health conditions gotten worse lately? Has the arthritis gotten worse? Has the migraines gotten worse? Has the heart disease or the congestive heart failure symptoms gotten worse? Has the diabetes been out of control? If you're seeing health conditions continually get worse and more hospitalizations, especially emergency visits, that's a sign that you're probably going to need some more help. So I think it's really important to be looking for those signs, because so many times in family caregiving, we tend to put ourselves in a situation where we put off the difficult conversation. We put off the conversation because we're hoping it's going to get better. When my grandma was in her, my grandmother was really young when I was born. She was 43 when I was born. And when she was in her 60s, she broke both shoulders and she had to be immobilized for 4 weeks. And so for that 4 weeks, my 3 aunts and I committed that one of us would be with her at all times for 4 straight weeks, 7 days in a row, 7 days. So basically like around 28, 30 days. We all took shifts. And we knew though that it was going to get better. Fast forward 20 plus years, and my grandmother started having all kinds of issues, all kinds of health problems, and constantly getting worse. It wasn't a rehabilitative situation where she had the immobilized arms and wrists and shoulders and she'd be back on track in 4 weeks. No, she was just continuing to decline. And so my family found ourselves in this exact situation, health conditions getting worse. We got to talk to her. So in terms of other things that can be really a sign, ambulation getting worse lately. My husband has an aunt who fell again, and that is a sign, especially if we can't figure out why and we're not able to get that person more stable. If there's more and more ambulation, falls are a big red flag, but not just falls, but gait not being good, not being able to get your balance. Maybe you're using a rollator or a wheelchair or a walker, and it's even harder than it's ever been. Those devices can be incredibly helpful, but sometimes the house that person is in is simply just not ideally set up for someone with additional challenges. Medication compliance falling by the wayside, so not taking meds. They agreed to take the meds. It's not that they're disputing it with the prescriber, but that they simply forget or they are losing track. I know for me, The last time that I had a really bad upper respiratory condition, and I wonder if any of you all have been in this situation, and my doctor prescribes a couple different meds because I have a history of childhood asthma and it gets into my chest. And so I have an inhaler and I have, nasal spray, and I have a whole bunch. And if they decide to put you on an antibiotic, and I have to actually keep a list of what time I took what, because otherwise I'll mess it up. And this isn't my normal life. This is just once in a while, every couple of years that I'll have a bad infection. But if somebody that you care about is their compliance is falling way by the wayside, and they forgot, and maybe this is leading to hospitalizations, this is something we need to pay attention to, and this is something that would be a red flag. You need to have the conversation. And so my question is, and I really want everybody out there to be thinking about this, and I want you to write in just a yes or a no, a Y or an N. Are you functioning more as one of the following: housekeeper, a nursing assistant, a medicine aide, a chauffeur, driver? Are you functioning more as, maybe even you might think of sort of as a butler, then a daughter, a wife, a niece? Yeah, a lot of people saying yes. So that's your sign that you really got to take things to the next level. And a lot of us, everyone, I haven't had a no yet. If you're at a no, that's great. Maybe it's not quite time, but I would still make the relationship and I would connect with Oasis Senior Advisors, because it's always good to make the connection way before you need help. Just make the connection, meet the advisor, meet the folks that own the franchise near you, because that way you've made the introduction, you know them. So even if you're saying no, but most of you are saying yes. So definitely connect with your Oasis Senior Advisor. Yeah. Okay, so, that's great. So Bruce says mom pays to have services provided by professionals, and now you have to, that's awesome. So it sounds like you've got a system in place. And so when somebody says no, and I'm also hearing from Beth, who's saying she won't hire the additional help she needs. So that is what we're getting into now. So remember, I want everybody on here to be thinking about, if you have a kid, adult child in your life, or children, or let's say you don't, let's say you have nieces and nephews, or you have somebody younger than you that loves you, that has your best interest at heart. Let's just say today or tonight, they call you and they say, we're worried about you. We don't know if you can take care of yourself. Our knee-jerk reaction is pretty much always going to be, who the heck does this person think they are? We look at that person as a youngin, as a younger person. How could they possibly be looking at me like I'm not the authority figure? I'm older than them. I have more experience than them. So I want you to be thinking about that just for a moment. If someone that is a child in your life, adult child, or I think you're like that, a niece and nephew, somebody in your life, think about it. Most likely you would be very, very resistant to that conversation. And just as many of you might be saying, well, okay, sure, I'd be resistant because nothing's wrong with me. That's the mindset of a lot of our older loved ones, because there is a level of denial. There is a level of things aren't as bad as maybe other people think that they are. So I'm going to share with you some questions and thoughts about how do you go about having these conversations? How do we go about having these discussions? So I want you to be thinking about, do you have a loved one who thinks that they are living independently, but you're really propping them up? So I see this as one of the more common problems. And this happened with my grandma when she was in her 80s, because we would have conversations with her. Things were getting bad. She was having all the issues we just talked about: ambulation, medication compliance, declining health conditions. We were functioning more like housekeepers and medicine aides rather than loved ones. And so at one point I said to my grandmother, because I was sort of the lead in that conversation about, grandma, we need to look at more help. She got to the point where she wanted someone in the family to sleep over every single night. And thankfully, in our family, we all didn't live that far away from each other. And there are about 10 of us. And we were taking turns, and it was going okay for a while. It was going okay for a couple months, but then it started not being okay. People weren't sleeping at night. As you can imagine, sleeping on my grandmother's couch was not the best place to get a good night's sleep. And I talked to my grandmother, I broached the topic, and I said, listen, we need to talk about bringing in some help and or looking at moving to a community. And my grandmother was completely had capacity, totally legally competent, didn't have any dementia or cognitive impairment. And she said to me, I don't know what you're talking about. Why would you think that I needed extra help? And she was just dumbfounded. And I said, well, you are expecting someone to be here pretty much 24 hours a day with you for the last couple months. And she says, oh, no, I just enjoy everybody's company. And so that was a defense mechanism. There was a certain amount of denial going on in that situation. So what I wound up doing in that moment was, because I was the one spending the night, I was the one visiting, as I said to her, okay, well, if that's the case, for the rest of the night, let's just hang out. We'll watch our shows, we'll play Scrabble, we'll do whatever, but you take your medicine without me prompting you, and you get yourself to the bathroom. And if when you want a snack, why don't you go get the snack? And this lasted for about an hour. And it was really, really tough. But the point was made, and she got it. She really got it. And I'm sure a lot of people out there think that was really kind of mean of me. But it had to be done because my dad and my aunts and my cousins and my siblings and I were not sleeping at night. We were, every aspect of the pies of everyone's life were diminishing. And her quality of life wasn't good either. Her quality of life wasn't good, but we were propping her up, and she believed she was independent. And so what our strategy was to say, Grandma, my dad said, you know what? I'm not going to sleep over there anymore, but I still will take you to the doctor. I will still bring meals over. And I would say, well, I'll come for visits, but I can only sleep over here once every couple of weeks. And my other aunts would say, we'll come over to hang out with you and bring meals and cook. But again, we're only going to be able to commit to an occasional spending the night. And so this got my grandmother in the mindset of realizing that it was going to be too much, and it wasn't a temporary situation, and that she had to start looking at what else could supplement. So if you aren't sleeping well at night, or if you've got other consequences, like you're having headaches, or your stomach's constantly bothering you, or you can't remember the last time that you had a date with your spouse or partner, or you are feeling like you have no time for your spiritual practices or seeing friends. If this is going on, what are the possible consequences of waiting? Well, one, your quality of life is going to get tougher. And two, your loved one, you're not doing your loved one any favors by doing everything for them, because it's most likely that being at home is not serving them anymore either. Now, listen, home care can be great. There's a lot, and I know that Oasis Senior Advisors work with home care, but sometimes only home care, if that person really can never leave the house, if they just have a 24-hour aide in the house, sometimes there's really not enough of that part we talked about earlier about psychological and socialization. And so every family has to decide what makes the most sense. But if moving, a lot of times somebody, if they wait too long, and this happened to my grandmother, she waited too long that she really wasn't senior living eligible anymore. She was more appropriate for a nursing home because things kept declining. And if she had wound up going to an assisted living earlier, or even entertaining the possibility earlier, I think that she may have actually had the opportunity to live longer and enjoy the amenities of a senior living community that was the right fit for her. So some strategies, and feel free, again, like I said, to write in your comments or your questions. Actually, I'm gonna pull up one that's at the end, and I'm gonna because I want to share this first, and Sierra actually sent me an email and remind me I need to put this earlier. The first thing I want you to think about before you have a conversation with your loved one about moving or bringing help in is I want you to consider their legal competence and their cognitive capacity. Does your mom have the ability to truly understand what's going on? Now, the example I want to share is your mom has advanced Alzheimer's. No, she does not. She might have good moments and good times of the day where she understands that you're her daughter and that she understands what's going on and what season it is. But most of the day, she's not going to remember conversations. She forgot that she just had a snack. She forgot that it was just her birthday a couple days ago. You don't really necessarily want to have a conversation with somebody whose capacity is that limited. You probably simply need to start taking action, okay? You need to start making plans. You need to start meeting with the OASIS senior advisors to look at what are the services out there that would be a good fit. A lot of families wait for permission from somebody whose brain is not working properly. On the other hand, if you do have somebody whose brain is working properly, they have capacity, like my grandmother, we couldn't force her to do anything, to bring home care in, to move. We did eventually get home care in, and we were on the verge of moving, and unfortunately she passed away. But she had every right to be part of the discussion and to weigh in and to say no. But at the same time, we had every right to stop propping her up and pulling back and setting some boundaries. So I'm going to pull back a little bit to earlier. So when you are going to have a conversation with your loved one, again, assuming that they're a good candidate for the conversation, I want you to think about what's your outcome that you want. What's your goal? Do you want your loved one to agree to go visit communities because you're going to be in town? Or are you just looking to take their temperature and broach the subject? So create an agenda of what do you want to think about, and consider role playing with another family member, a friend. A lot of times a friend that isn't going to be part of it is a good person to role play with. You're a therapist, maybe if you're involved in a support group. But think about what do you want your outcome to be from a conversation, and know that it's usually a series of conversations you're going to have. What we want to avoid, of course, is the issue with you're at the hospital, she can't go home anymore. There's just too much is wrong now. We have to decide today. And that's one of the hardest situations that families can get into, because making a decision under duress like that is almost never satisfactory to the older person or to their family. Who should communicate? Now, how many people on here today put a Y or an N in the chat? Maybe if you are somebody that spends a lot of time, that you're what you would consider to be a primary caregiver, that there's some other person in the family that it seems like they listen to more. Maybe you live near mom and the brother that lives in another state is the one it seems like she listens to more. Anybody have a scenario like that in their life? Yeah, a lot of people have this. Okay, so what I want to encourage you to consider is bring that person in to help. Think about who would be the better communicator. So often, the person closest emotionally and closest geographically is going to be ignored. A lot of times it's somebody that's not part of the day-to-day who is really the person that breaks through the denial and comes in and says, hey, mom, I'm seeing what's going on and I'm hearing this happened. And, can you please think about this? So yeah, Judy, sure. Why is that? There's a lot of psychological reasons. We could do another program on that, John, but there's a lot of psychological reasons. I think that there's a safety. I think when you've got a primary caregiver, a lot of times there's a safety. It's almost like you're gonna maybe be a little bit sometimes we take things out on people that are closest to us. But yeah, Judy said, a doctor can be a great person. But again, I think a lot of it is not just about one person communicating. It can be messaging coming from the doctor, coming from different family members. It can be messaging coming from a spiritual advisor. Yeah, Kristen, I highly recommend that you download and Sierra, please put in cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. Download the worksheets, the free worksheets. The one on the martyr syndrome would be great for your dad. You know, and if you're saying he can't financially afford help, there are some things. There's the MET exercise, MET, the MET exercises. Yeah, it's cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. If you could put that in the chat section. And there's the MET exercise will help you with if you really truly do not have the finances for service, for external services. But again, I would always talk to Oasis senior advisors and talk to them about the different budgets that you might be in. And a lot of times families, and I know that this isn't always possible in every family, but a lot of families pull their money together. I know that when my grandmother needed help, everyone put in a certain amount every single month. And again, I know that that's not possible in every family. But I also would say that that martyr syndrome exercise would be really helpful for your dad to do, because guilt is an emotion that is misplaced in caregiving most of the time. If you're starving your loved one, if you're not getting them to the doctor when they need emergency attention, then you should feel guilty. If you're looking to have a break, no, not something you should feel guilty about. You don't deserve guilt. Give specific examples of your concerns. Mom, you've fallen 6 times in the last 4 months. Dad, I've had to miss work 3 times in the last 2 weeks because of your concerns, because you've had some worries and health issues. And I just think it would be really great if we could maybe move you somewhere where you can meet people, the socialization aspect, that your health needs will be met. I can visit with you. I can take you home with us to do things. We can go out on and go out to lunch, go do fun things. But give specific examples of why you're asking them to consider a change. Give, you know, and I think for families, what can be really helpful is writing a log of what's happening when, dates, times, and you don't have to regurgitate that back to them, but just saying, listen, in the last 3 weeks, you've called me 4 times in the middle of the night. And again, I'm not sleeping. Look for natural openings. Natural openings for these conversations are, my husband's mother has a friend that moved into a continuing care retirement community. And that was a really great natural opening for my husband to start talking to my mother-in-law about, well, would you consider looking? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever considered moving out of the house? What would that look like? My husband, my mother-in-law is in really good shape, but he has had probably 7, 8, 10 conversations with her over the last couple of years. He's using natural openings. Somebody has a bad fall. Look for things in pop culture that happen when, for example, somebody that is talking about a condition that Bruce Willis, for example, or just as Sandra Day O'Connor, they've talked about their diagnoses. Like if that something like that were to happen to you, what would you want? What would be something that's in pop culture? Maybe you're watching a show, a television show or a movie where and there's so many good ones that address this, like This Is Us, The Notebook. I mean, there's so many great films but that look at, these are natural openings. It's not just you're bringing up senior living and help for the home out of the blue. So look for those natural openings. It could be also that you are, maybe a story from your life that you have a friend or you have a neighbor who is experiencing something or going through something with a parent. Or maybe it's a friend of yours. Maybe you have a neighbor that just started to look at senior living. Ask open-ended questions about what you're concerned about. So, for example, how do you see this situation getting better if we don't make a change? That's an open-ended question. What do you think? What other kind of open-ended questions do you think would help persuade? Because asking questions is a dialogue. And there's nothing wrong, and it's a good strategy to say, hey, these are my concerns. This is what's happened. This is 4 falls in 3 weeks. But to ask open-ended questions, if we don't do something about your falls, or if you continue to stay home and fall, what do you think is going to end up happening? So if anybody else has another open-ended question that they would like to ask, or pardon me, suggest, feel free. But talking about open-ended questions in a way that is going to spark conversation. How about, if I was out of town visiting my child at college and I wasn't here to help you, how do you think you would handle that? Or if I wasn't able to fly out, but those are the sorts of questions that can spark conversation and can spark some thought, some deep thought about what the situation is and what might be needed. What are the things that scare you about looking at senior living options? There's no commitment. You don't have to do anything, especially, listen, I think always emphasizing to your loved one, if they're of capacity and they're competent, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. It's always going to be your choice. That really is very reassuring. But what would be so bad? What would be the worst thing about that? Beth, that is definitely something that you want to talk about, the issue of vascular dementia, not remembering conversations. That's something you want to talk about with your Oasis senior advisor. That is definitely something where it's hard, but you're going to start needing to make moves on your own, that your mom may not be able to weigh in on the process. And I know that sort of seems to be going very much against what I just said, but remember, if her brain isn't working properly, she can't remember. What you want to do is try to arrange the best care for her that you can based on what you know that she would like. But she's probably not going to be able to weigh in on the conversations. And it's a very, very tough thing if she really can't remember conversations from the day before. And frankly, it sounds like she might be a little bit further along with vascular dementia if rather than the beginning, if she's not remembering conversations from day to day. With home care, yeah, Judy, that's a great question. A lot of times if home care is costing a certain amount, senior living can be way better deal, for sure. Beth, it's really hard and it's really tough. And what I also would suggest, besides talking to your Oasis senior advisor, is looking at a support group. A support group for dementia. And the best places, I think, and Sierra, if you could put these in, alz.org for dementia support groups, and HFC, Hilarity for Charity, which Oasis Senior Advisors and I have done a lot of work with. Hilarity for Charity, it's Seth Rogen and Lauren Miller Rogen's nonprofit that helps dementia caregivers. But they have wonderful support groups, virtual support groups. Now they have online. So Sierra, it's We Are HFC, WARWE, Hilarity for Charity. We ARE HFC.org. So Judy, I would just say, have you ever considered how much money you could potentially save? Sarah, it's WEAREHFC.org. So Judy, I would say, have you considered how much money you might be able to save by moving, and how much more it would include? And the fact that, let's be honest, there you go, Sierra. To be honest with you, how much more you might get in terms of meeting people. So often an aide comes to the home and they're watching TV with your loved one, and there's really not a lot of engagement and interaction. And that person, it's one person that your loved one is seeing, whereas being exposed to lots of people is really, really good for physical, mental, and cognitive health. So ask those open-ended questions. And again, going back to don't try to have conversations with people who have advanced dementia. Think about what they would want, consider how they react if you visit somewhere, if they seem more comfortable in one place rather than another. But also remember, if you're going on tours, they will get their cues from you. If you're nervous and edgy, they're going to be nervous and edgy. So much is coming from your body language, your facial expressions when you're going on a tour or when you're talking about senior living. And again, of course, remember that emphasize the capacity. Mom, Dad, your brain works properly. You can do anything you want. However, if you don't choose to get some help, I might need to pull back a little bit because I'm not sleeping at night. I'm not connecting with my spouse. My kids' grades are suffering. And it's okay to share that. Now, listen, would I have said that to my grandmother when she had that injury for 4 weeks? No, because it was temporary. It was going to end. But I definitely said that to her later when we didn't have an end in sight. Ultimately, this is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid isolation, stagnation. When somebody is engaged, like they can be at senior living, that we're stimulating not just their health physically, their cognition, but also the socialization, which keeps them healthy and contributes to better physical, mental, and cognitive health. And this is one of the reasons, like a 24-hour aid every single day for ongoing periods of time. I'm not saying it's not the right thing for some families, but for some, many individuals, a lot of times there's going to be more stimulation if you seek senior living and look at that as an option. So we're going to go ahead and take any questions at all. Again, go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com if you want to download the worksheets. Anytime you can download them and you can make photocopies. You don't have to worry about copyright as long as you use it in your entirety, share with your family. And I'm going to leave the chat open and I'm going to be here, but I'm going to turn it back over to Oasis Senior Advisors to close us out. So thank you so much. And John, here's John, and then Sierra's going to wrap us up.
Jen, great job. If you could let me share my screen, I just put a number up real quick. Okay. So Jen, great job. Thank you. I was watching the chats and just such great information. We're all struggling through some of this. I often see from, families, my team that I work with, our referral partners, we all have a personal, story that's brought us to this world, and we can certainly feel for you. And, really want to thank Jen and Sierra for the opportunity, information that they provided. If there's somebody, if you need help, I saw a lot of questions around finance, a lot of questions around just having that family conversation. Our advisors can help you. So you may know them. If you don't know them and you want to reach out and find if there's a Oasis Senior Advisors in your area, please visit oasissenior-advisors.com or call 888-455-5838, or just email operations@oasissenior-advisors.com. I really want to thank you. And again, Jen, thanks. It's always great to partner with Generations. So Sierra, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, John. Thank you again for attending today's program. We'd like to thank Oasis Senior Advisors for sponsoring today's program for you. Please stay tuned for a link after the program and complete a short survey to tell us how we did. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.